Hi, I'm Ethan. Sometimes people call me the college essay guy, and sometimes people just call me Ethan. And welcome to the webinar. I like starting on time. Shall we start on time and punish all the people who are late? Let's do it. Not punish, but just I look. There's a positive way of saying it, like your English teacher says it, right? We're going to honor those who arrived on time. So thank you for being here on time. This is 5 ways to create an amazing college app in less time. I swear. And by the end of this, I want you to have a sense of, how to finish your application over the summer. So I'm going to offer a bunch of tips and resources, and let's get started. All right. So if you know me, you know that I love to start webinars and sessions with some kind of probing question. And I'm also looking to give you a chance to find the chat box. So the question that I want to start with is, what's something that you would love to hear someone say to you? So think about this a second. And I'm going to think about it too. What is something that I would love for someone to say to me? You know what I would love for someone to say to me? Ethan, you've done enough work for today. Because it's been a busy last couple of days just getting ready for this webinar and dealing with some, there's been some health stuff in my family. And I feel inspired and motivated and tired. And I would love for someone to say to me, Ethan, you done good. You can rest. So what about you? What would you like someone to say to you? So, the chat box, you can find that, and I'll check into that in just a minute or two. And that'll also give folks a chance to show up. So if you don't know me, here's some facts about me. Sometimes people are like, well, what qualifies you to be talking about college essays? And it's like, well, I've spent 13 years thinking about it. So I went to Northwestern, went to UC Irvine, studied acting. So that was the break I took from college essays. But this was basically my post-college job. And I spent a lot of time training, teaching and training counselors and training teachers on call. If so, welcome. And there might be some parents. If so, welcome. I like to collect certifications. One of my certifications is in Myers-Briggs in personality typing. I'm kind of a geek for that. And hypnotherapy. I'm licensed in hypnotherapy, but don't worry, I'm not going to be hypnotizing you today. I give away a lot of free stuff on my website. If you go to collegeessayguy.com/free, you'll see a thing that says, I can't believe you give all this stuff away for free, because that's that's a comment that I often get. And if you're looking for anything, just see where that little blue arrow is. Just type in what you're looking for, and you'll, anything related to the college application process. A lot of times, stuff will come up related to my podcast. So I, did 24 episodes last year. I've got 4 more that are ready to come out in the next month. That are in the can, as it were, and I'm excited to share those. I wrote a book. Like I said, I've spent 12 years thinking about this. It's the #1 book on college essays. They're kind of my jam. And I started this scholarship called the Matchlighters Program, which gives 4 hours of free college essay help to students who qualify, and 2 hours of list help. So if you're interested in this, you can go to this link, collegeessayguy.com/matchlighters. You need to type that in. Don't do it now. I'll send you that later so you'll remember. And if you're a counselor listening and you want to volunteer, we'd love to have you. We matched 100 students with counselors last year, and some of them got into amazing schools. So, and I can rock a mean onesie. This is my wife and my daughter and me in our onesies, just because. And I also love Failblog. Do you guys know this website? It might be kind of passe for you, but I get no greater joy than seeing a tow truck towing a tow truck. The irony in there is pretty deep, but you may not have seen this image of a tow truck towing a tow truck towing a tow truck. If you've been to this glorious website called Failblog, you also know that there are wins, like this guy who his friends made fun of him for his hydraulics until the floods came. And then he said, "What's up now?" So that's a hashtag win. And here's another win. The win for me is the Jurassic Park sticker is pretty amazing. The dude's face is pretty amazing. But what about the girl in the back? That's what I love. That's my favorite win in this image. So why am I showing you these? Because today I'm going to share with you 5 common app fails. I didn't want to say fails. So I hashtagged it, and then I crossed it out and put missed opportunities. So these are 5 opportunities that I think students don't make the most of. I'm trying to qualify it a little bit on their college applications. And I want to offer you, based on those fails or missed opportunities, how can you up-level your application? Okay, so I'm going to share with you the 3 differences, in my humble opinion, between a boring essay and a standout essay. and application. 4 ways to know if your personal statement's amazing. 5 ways that you can up-level your activities and awards list. Why the additional info section? I know you can read this for yourself, but who knows? Somebody might be just listening to this. That's why I'm reading it. Why the additional information section, which is this big blank spot of 650 words on your Common App, could make a huge difference. I'm going to give you what I recommend to be like the perfect summer timeline for getting stuff done, and I'll tell you why I think it's best. And then I'm going to do a little 3-minute PSA for these 2 upcoming summer courses I have. So this summer I'm doing a course on how to write a personal statement. It's like a week-long like boot camp experience. And then I'm doing a second course that's new that I'm excited about on how to create a great application, which is a week long. So I'll tell you about that later. At the end, I'll tell you how to get links to this, the slides to this and to the recording. I'll give you a PDF with a college prep timeline. You can print it out and put it on your wall if you feel so inspired. I've heard students do this. I should have them send a picture. Oh, that's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remind me at the end to tell you, because I was trying to figure out because I'm going to give away a free book. I might give away a few free books. Remind me what that has to do with the college prep timeline at the end, because I might forget, because I just had a new idea. And I'm going to share with you a video on up-leveling, how to up-level your personal statement. All right. Let's turn this thing upside down. So here are 5 ways to up-level your college application. Vis-a-vis, which is a phrase that my friend Lisa is obsessed with right now, so it's getting in my head. Ethan's list of college app missed opportunities. All right, here we go. This is water. Number 1, the first missed opportunity is people use just okay pizza ingredients. And you're like, what? I'll explain that in just a second. So first of all, let me ask you, what do you feel like makes a great college essay? Just think about this. Like, what is the difference in your mind? Because I'm going to tell you what I think in just a second, between a boring essay and one that actually stands out. Any thoughts, any feelings on this? Let me look at the chat box. Mostly people saying hello. Somebody said, you changed my life. Thanks, Deb. I really appreciate that. So what do you guys feel like? Well, what's the difference between a great essay, a boring one, and an amazing one? And there's like a 15-second delay. So details. Yes, David. Values, says Deb. Yes, totally. What else? What do you feel like makes a beautiful essay? So we've got values, we've got details, a hook. I like a good hook. A compelling story, avoiding cliches, an essay that makes you cry. I love these. Yes, just listing activities, a big no-no. These are great. Grabs your attention, right? Something that tugs at your emotions. Yes, June. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So in my opinion, a boring essay takes a common topic, makes common connections, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a second, okay? And uses common language. Again, I'll give you an example in a second. Whereas a standout essay takes an uncommon topic, makes uncommon connections, and uses uncommon language. Now, this is a very simple paradigm, but it's kind of profound, y'all. So check this out. So give me a common example, something like basketball, right? A common topic is basketball. You know, admissions readers are like, the sports essay, they call it. So in terms of connections, what I would ask you is like, what would be the common, say, values that someone would focus on in a basketball essay? Well, they're probably going to talk about hard work. There's nothing like grinding it out, getting it up early in the morning, jogging 3 miles, discipline, staying focused, keeping on my game, and perseverance. And then common language, teamwork makes the dream work. It's essential for success. So this is what most basketball essays will sound like, right? Something like this. However, here's an uncommon essay example. This is a short version of it. Check it out. I've devoted thousands of hours to playing the santur, a classical Persian instrument that originated in the Middle East. Some think I'm strange, a Persian red-headed Jewish teenager obsessed with an ancient musical instrument. But many don't see what I see. My santur is King David's lyre. It can soothe, enrapture, mesmerize. Well, bam! It's also a tool for social change. Many view Iran as a land of terrorists. But when I play, if just for a moment, the barrier is broken and the innocent of Iran, the educated, the artists, the innovators come to life. The santur is also my way of connecting to my Persian grandfather, who was afflicted with Alzheimer's. In December, I'll be releasing my first album and donating the proceeds to Alzheimer's research, doing my part to help eradicate the disease and preserve the voice of the santur so that it shall never be forgotten. There's a lot going on there in a really great way. So what do I see? An uncommon example, right? An uncommon topic, Santur. How many students are writing about the Santur? Not many. Santur versus basketball. Uncommon connections, social change. So I highlighted them for you. What do I mean by this? What values is the author highlighting that may not be highlighted in another essay on the Santur or another, whatever it is, basketball essay? Family and culture. We don't know. So let's just imagine for a second this is a violin essay. So that's a more common topic, right? The violin. But how many violin essays are going to be focused on social change, as this essay was, or on family and culture, or on helping others? Usually that violin essay is going to be focused on discipline and perseverance and all that, right? And then notice the uncommon language. My Santur is King David's lyre. It can soothe, enrapture, mesmerize. I've got those lines memorized. Memorized and mesmerized. I'm mesmerized by my memorization skills. Thank you for that. Okay, so you're wondering, wait, how do I do this? And I know what you're also thinking. You're also thinking, Ethan, I don't actually play the Santur, so I don't actually have that as a topic to write about. Don't worry, I got you. So this is the exercise that I think is the key to standing out on your personal statement, on your supplemental essays, and on your application. You ready? Here it is. I'm giving it to you in the first 11 minutes. First, pick a topic. And I want you to pick a topic that's like a supplemental essay topic that you're maybe going to write about. And the more cliche, the better. Okay. So give me and you can write it in the chat box if you want. And if you're a counselor or parent listening, give me the clicheist topic you can think of. I'm going to make up that word, clicheist. I'll give you a second to do that. And I'm going to drink some water. What do we got coming in? We got some good cliche topics. Let's see, the screen is blurry for somebody. Yeah, it's not for me. I went to Mexico and helped those poor people so much. Beautiful, Lisa. The community service essay, we'll call it. What else? How I grew from my service trip. Same one. Perseverance isn't a topic. Give me the topic. Give me like the thing. Mission trip. We've hit mission trip 5 times. My summer volunteer job. I threw the winning touchdown, says Oscar. Sports injury. Building schools in Africa. Boy, you guys know about these topics. So let's pick one for a second. Let's pick the dead grandma. That's another big one. Let's pick the service trip essay because that's being mentioned so much. Sorry if the screen is blurry for some of y'all. This is an exercise called the values exercise, which I'll share with you after the webinar. But I know this is going to be kind of small for you guys. If you can't read this, just Google values exercise college essay guy, hit enter, and try not to get distracted by all of your whatever else you're looking at. If you can see the screen, great. So here's the game. We've got our cliche topic, which is the service trip. And we're going to first brainstorm together what would the cliche service trip essay focus on. So take a look for a second. What are some of the values that the most service trip essays are going to focus on? They're going to focus on, I'm just looking at this, teamwork. I was working side by side with my friends and we were working to build this house. What else? Helping others, right? You can type in the chat box if you want. Helping others. Let's see. Self-discipline. Travel. Yeah, I'd never been to this part of the world. It was amazing. Leadership. Yeah. What else? Collaboration. Yeah, totally. Empathy. Yeah. So if you can't read this, again, just Google values exercise, and this exercise will pop up on a PDF. Essentially, it's just a big menu of values. Okay, so the purpose of this exercise is to first brainstorm what is everybody else going to be writing about. And then if you have to write a service trip essay, which is to say and I'm not saying don't write about a service trip, okay? If that really changed your life, you can write about it. But it's just going to be harder to stand out than if you wrote about something that's an uncommon topic. But let's take our service trip essay and let's make it uncommon. Okay, so let's first agree not to write about some of the things that y'all have mentioned. What would be an uncommon connection that you could make? So what would be a lesson that is learned either if you've been on a service trip or if you just imagine sort of an unusual, an unusual connection that you can make? Let's just make one. So what would this be? And by the way, Oscar, thanks for putting that link in. Will you put in the link for the values exercise? That'd be sweet. And then people can grab that. Or Devin, if you can hear me, that'd be awesome. Devin's my brother. He's on the webinar as well. So what would be an uncommon connection? An unusual thing that you wouldn't normally connect to service trip. Nature. Interesting. I like it, Elizabeth. And if we had more time, I would unpack and be like, Elizabeth, what connection about nature and service trip? Tell me what you learned. Efficiency. I love it. So efficiency, that's a great one. That's an unusual connection. Elizabeth, you're great at this already, I can tell. What would be another one? Vulnerability. That's nice. So here's my point. I'd rather read the essay. Let me ask you, would you rather read the essay? I mean, this is a very super leading question, right? On, helping others, hard work and teamwork, or would you rather read the community service, the service essay that's on nature, vulnerability, and art? Like those are much more interesting connections, I think. What's my point here? And here's actually a pop quiz. If a standout essay is an uncommon topic that makes uncommon connections and uncommon language, where should you spend most of your time? And I'm going to give you a hint here. What if you don't have an uncommon topic? What if you have only a common topic to write about? Where am I probably going to suggest you spend most of your time? On the uncommon connections, right? Why? Because better ingredients, better pizza. Why am I quoting Papa John's here? Because a lot of people think that the ingredients, like what you're writing about, is your topic. Like the service trip is your topic, but that's not actually your topic, I don't think. I think the ingredients are actually the connections you're making. In other words, the things you're saying about your topic. Does that help? Is that useful? I hope it is. It was kind of like a moment for me. Okay, so that's the first one. The first mistake that students make is they make just okay pizza, or they start with just okay pizza ingredients. If you can find some uncommon connections, that's going to level up your application and your essay, and all of your essays, really. Okay, second, I think students often write essays that are one-dimensional in the Aristotelian sense. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So Aristotle had 3 methods of persuasion. And you could argue that in some sense, you are trying to persuade the admissions reader of something. You're trying to persuade the reader that you're going to make valuable contributions in college and beyond, right? Aristotle's 3 methods of persuasion, in other words, the ways that we convince one another of something, are through pathos, which is to say, appealing to their emotions, getting them emotionally involved; logos, which is convincing someone based on like reason or logic; and ethos, which involves establishing your credibility and character, right? I have a friend named Nick who said that a great grant application, so he writes a lot of grant applications, and he read once that a great grant application, when you're asking someone for money, needs to appeal to logos, pathos, and ethos, all 3 of them. So it's like a Venn diagram. So in the middle, there's that sweet spot. If you can appeal to all 3, then you're really in the pocket. Well, guess what? You know what I'm going to say here, right? A great college application needs to do the same thing. It needs to appeal. It needs to use pathos, appeal to the emotion; logos, right? Appealing to logic; and ethos. Establishing your credibility. So just to bring it home, how do you do this? How do you Aristotle your application and convince an admissions rep that you'll make valuable contributions? You'll want to, 1, appeal to pathos. And how do you do that? By demonstrating vulnerability. And I don't have time on this webinar to get into how to demonstrate vulnerability. That's, on the courses, what I'll tell you about later. But it's super important, I think. How do you make a personal statement personal? Vulnerability, I think, is the key. Logos is the second one, right? Appeal to their sense of logic. How do you do that? Through insight that you offer in craft. And then ethos. I think that's like the gut, demonstrating your credibility, that you are someone who can, bring some value to the college campus and beyond. Also, I think ethos in another sense. I think in terms of like your spirit and who you are, I think demonstrating your beliefs and aspirations can come through in your values. So what am I suggesting? Hit them on all 3, the heart, the head, and the gut. Okay. Now, how do you do this? At the end of the session, I'll share with you a video that's going to basically break down the 4 qualities of a great essay. And it'll teach you how to bring more values into your essay, how to bring more vulnerability, how to bring more insight, and how to bring more craft into it, and how to like scan to know, let's say you've already written an essay, how to know if your essay's already doing that. Okay, so I have to switch prezzies. The third mistake students make is students like sleep. They kind of like, go soft on their activities and awards lists. Okay. While I'm transitioning prezzies, here's my mini question for you. And I want you to type in the chat box. What is a concern that you have about your activities and awards list? Okay. Because I'm hoping to solve it in the next 5 minutes. Okay. So type it in the chat box. Issues that you have or concerns you have in the activities and awards list. And give me just 1 second. Let me transition prezzies. Hi, I'm here again. All right. Let me just grab this. Ba-dum, ba-dum. All right, it's going to take me a second. Thanks for your patience. All right. So here, I'm also going to give you a little sneak peek into what I've been doing for the past 3 months. So here goes. All right. Want to see what I've been doing the past 3 months? Because this will contextualize what I'm going to show you. This is my mapping process that I've figured out. So basically it involves how do you, the student, take all of your magic and awesomeness and sort it and do all these parts of the application, activities list, additional info, why us, etc. This is the course I'm going to tell you about. How do you make sure your app's doing its job and end up with an awesome application? We're going to talk about the activities and awards list. So basically, you've got all these different parts of your application. We're going to talk next about the activities and awards list. If you're not sure what that is, it's basically a list. It's good for demonstrating what you've done. So if there's an opportunity to brag, it's here. The tone is like succinct, factual, like a resume. You've got 10 activities on the Common App, and you've got space for 5 awards and honors. And you've got like 150 character descriptions, for these. So it's like basically like a tweet, like the old tweets, not the newer, longer ones. So I'm going to get into the activities list in just a second. Tell me, I'm just curious to see what folks came in with. What are your concerns about activities lists? So how to show depth and commitment different from the average applicant? I got you. Too many activities are similar. Interesting. That's a good question. Maybe we'll do that in the Q&A. Yeah, how to stand out. Not having enough. Not enough leadership. I'm going to handle that in a second, Bonnie. The significance of activities and awards. I'll show you how to do that. The same. Yeah, some similar issues. Not enough and variety. Okay, cool. Good. I'm talking to the right people. All right. So here are some tips for your activities and awards list. So first, use active verbs to explain what you actually did. Okay. What do I mean by active verbs? Rather than saying, for example, I worked at a clinic doing different things, super vague, right? I can't see that either. Like, I don't know what that looks like. I could make that up, but I don't know what it actually looks like. Look at this student. He tweaked this to organized patient diagnosis notes, sterilized tools for surgeries, assisted with x-ray analysis. Do you see those verbs that like pop? You can like highlight them. Organized, sterilized, assisted. I can see those too. I can see someone organizing patient diagnosis notes. So make it visual. So how do you make this pop? Make it visual and make sure you've got variety with your verbs. Okay. Or here's another student. She measured vitals, made health recommendations. It sounds legit, right? I mean, it actually sounds legit, like a little too legit. Prescribed medicine for treatable ailments. Whoa, she's a straight up doctor. And provided medical services for a Parkinson's patient. So active verbs, first tip. Second, make sure your verbs aren't redundant. So instead of saying like, I instructed and I helped and I taught children tennis, I'm reading those and I'm like, what? How are these different? Right? So instead, the student modified it to instructed tennis students in proper technique. So we can see that, right? Instructing them in technique while also imparting lessons in sportsmanship, health, and integrity. Now, I know it's kind of hard to visualize the imparting lessons in sportsmanship, health, and integrity, but we can see that it's clearly different from the technique thing, right? So aim for variety. Second tip. Tip 3, emphasize and quantify tangible, measurable impact. Students sometimes forget this one. A great way to do this is with numbers. So answer these 3 questions. Whom did you help? How many people did you help? If it's a good number. If it's like 4, I don't know. That's not a bad thing, but if it's like 200 people, that helps me get a sense of like how many people, you helped organize. How much money did you raise if you raised some money? So rather than like raised money for children in the entire continent of Africa, because students will write that, try this. Raised this much money, $3,000, to provide these particular things, 18 uniforms and 6 scholarships for these students at this particular school in this particular place. Now I've got some sense of it. So you're equipping, I think one of my jobs as a college counselor is to help equip students with the information they need to make an informed decision. Okay. Like I think that's part of my job as a counselor. I think part of your job as an applicant is to equip the reader with the information they need to make an informed decision. And if you're saying like, I raise money for children in Africa, you're not doing that really. So you're not doing your job. So give them more specifics. And I think visuals help us really get a sense of it. If your role, this is for, I forget what your name was, but if you're self-conscious about not enough leadership, don't point it out at every opportunity. What do I mean by that? So if you, just showed up at NHS meetings and you just showed up at Cesar Chavez Day of Service, you don't need to say, I would like when it's like in the role part, member of this or participant of this. You can just write what the thing was. Okay. This is just for students who are like self-conscious about that. Okay. If you want to demonstrate leadership, use verbs that demonstrate leadership. An example, if I said, I participated in meetings, that's one thing. But if I spearheaded a project, to spearhead something means to like, right, head it up, to be the call maker, responsible for X. So these responsible, that's not a verb, but the fact that you're responsible for something. So find these keywords that you're using, usually after your commas, that are going to help show your leadership. Okay. Because leadership means so much. Oh, also, by the way, here's another tip. I don't think I've ever said this on a webinar or on a course. Like, leadership means so many different things to so many people. Take that values exercise that I showed you, which again, just Google values exercise, and ask yourself, well, what does leadership look like to me? Which of these values was I really demonstrating? Okay, because there's so many different ways to show leadership. Cool. Don't try to do it all in 150 characters. That's all the space you get, but you can make selective use of the additional info section. And I say selective use, don't go crazy with this, but this student, for example, created 3 different tech prototypes. He researched, brainstormed, and created 3 prototypes of a water cleaning boat. Recognized statewide. See additional info for Mo. So you can do that from Mo. See additional info for more. You can do that. You can say, go to the additional information section and you'll check out more. What I like to do is if a student is like, if you participated in something and you really want to show depth and you've spent like a ton of time doing it, do one of those 150 word extracurricular essays. So these are the ones that are required by like Harvard. It used to be that the whole Common App you had to write 150 word for like all the schools, but now like Harvard does it, Princeton, Michigan's got like 100 word one. Do a short one of those and then turn it into bullet points. Okay. Turn it into bullet points and you've got, here's all the stuff I did. Now you might be able to fit some of that into your activities list, but if it feels like it's overflowing and there's no way, put it in your additional info section. I'll talk to you more about that in just a minute, because I don't think you should go crazy with this. But let me say, here's the fourth thing that like students don't make the most of is their additional information section. So what is this? This is that big 650 word box that it's like, what else you got? Tell us more. And so here's some things that you might include in this additional information section. And again, you don't have to. So here's why I want to qualify this so much is that I think that sometimes when I give this little speech, my students are like, they start to get a little stressed because they're like, oh my gosh, I have to fill that with something. You totally don't. Like, students get into great schools each year. I had a student that I worked with who got ED as top choice, a school that you've heard of, and he didn't put anything in his additional info section because his counselor doesn't actually allow students to do that. He's still got into a great school, so don't feel like you have to do that. Having said that, a lot of times students are like, I don't know what to put there, so this is for you. So important important details about your activities that wouldn't fit in your activities list. Okay, so if your activities list is like that other guy's where he's like got all that prototype stuff that he wants to put in, here's what he said. So additional details for my tech prototypes. 1, wave machine. He just names it. It's a prototype. He says what it is. It's a prototype that creates transverse waves of high magnitude in the water. First use, he explains it. Second use, this. Oh, and I won this award that I couldn't fit in my awards section. Second, here's another one. We're collaborating with a software company. Here's the name of it, to create an app. The app's going to come out in February on the App Store and Google Play. Like, that's important information. If that feels kind of intimidating to read it, so be it. This isn't for everybody. This is just for students who he was like, where do I put that? I'm like, put in your additional info. Okay. Not everybody's going to have stuff to put here. That's okay. And it's super factual, right? It's like, here's this and here's this and here's that. Okay. It's truly additional information. Keyword información. Okay. Health stuff. So if you've got some health stuff that you've dealt with and it impacted your academics, especially if it impacted your academics, say so. And say so in simple terms. Okay. You can be straightforward with this. Here's a student who dropped volleyball and was like self-conscious. She was like, are they going to wonder why I only did volleyball for 9th and 10th grade? I was like, well, what's the explanation? And she's like, well, I decided not to continue volleyball senior year because of chronic back problems. And I was like, hang on. And I just typed what she said. And I was like, ta-da. She's like, oh, I can do that. And I'm like, you can do that. So health stuff, explain it, simple. If there were like accommodations that you made or like ways that you, I don't know, that could show values. Like, let's say, for example, you worked extra hard to make it up, or you had your friends kind of take notes for you in class, and that allowed you to get the work done and you still got straight A's. Like, include that, because that could be like an interesting, little tidbit. But keep this short, okay? Bullet points. What else? Ooh, IB extended essay abstract. So if you're in the IB, if you're not, don't worry about this. But this is a student who basically wrote a 4,000 word thesis on the negative externalities of land reclamation, which is the act of creating new land in the ocean in Bahrain on native fishermen. Super specific, super geeky, right? Get it in there. I want to know about that. Why? Because two reasons. One, not many students do like high level research papers. And so if you're in an IB program, I'm curious, what were you thinking about and working on for hours and hours and hours, hammering away at the iron, trying to figure out how to focus your thesis. And I think this really gives a window into your academic soul. Some counselor told me that once. If you're on the call and you said that, and I'm stealing your idea, forgive me. If someone can tell me who said that, I wish I knew. But keep it short. Keep it like 75 to 100 words. But again, you're trying to equip the reader with enough information to make an informed choice about you. Okay, so I think that counts. 4. So if there are red flags, like you dropped a sport or you couldn't be involved in extracurriculars for one reason or another, say so. Why? I think it could make a difference. Here's a quick example of a student I worked with a year and a half ago. Here's some stuff. So he couldn't finish wrestling season in 11th grade. Sometimes people really overthink. It's like 11. Oh yeah, 11th grade. Great. Mom and older brother were in a car accident. Responsibilities at home stacked up, and I was also working at the time to pay bills, so I was unable to stay for practice. Super clear. I get why you didn't finish wrestling season, why that dropped off for senior year. 11th, 12th summer courses. So tried to take college courses during the summer, but I couldn't afford the classes, and there was an issue regarding my residency. So this student was undocumented, and he said that in his personal statement. And so what he's saying here is basically, because the reader can connect the dots, that he tried to take courses, but he couldn't. Wasn't allowed to because of his residency issue. Okay. So that's something else the reader might be wondering about, because he was applying to pretty highly selective schools. Calc BC. So after taking Calc AB my junior year, I wanted to take Calc BC my senior year. Unfortunately, my teacher felt he wouldn't be able to teach the class since he lacked the knowledge and training to teach it. Instead, I took up a second science, AP Physics 2, during my senior year. I'm one of the first students to take this course at my school. Good to know. I wouldn't have known that otherwise, probably. His counselor wasn't actually going to write a letter because she was just too swamped. He was at a public school, overwhelmed, and couldn't do it. So, I told him, you've got to be an advocate for yourself. You've got to get some of this stuff in there. It's good to communicate. If you have a good relationship with your counselor, it's good to communicate with them and figure out what they're going to be saying in their counselor letter. But if you don't know and you want to make sure that the reader gets it, advocate for yourself. So he talks about taking up AP Physics 2, and the fact that he was one of the first students to take this course at the school may or may not, end up in his counselor recommendation. In this case, it wouldn't. And check this out. He got a 1910 on the old SAT. So his critical reading and math combined was a 1300, which was the highest overall score in his grade. That's important. Why? Because he was applying to highly selective schools that at most the average SAT score was higher than that. He was a little self-conscious about it, but when he told me that was, I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, should I list that as an award? I was like, yeah. So he put that in as an award. Why do these things matter? I'll tell you in a second. AP Physics. I was the first student at my school, he says, to ever pass the AP Physics 1 exam. Again, like something that I want to know if you were the first one. And he scored a 3. And I told him, I think you should put scored a 3 right next to this so that the reader doesn't have to go to another part of your application. Or when the reader's reading super fast, 8 minutes on your application or whatever, and reads that AP scores and sees a 3, it doesn't go it's not super strong. Put it right next to the fact that it was the first time that someone in your school passed the AP Physics 1 exam. And in one of his essays, he talks about self-studying a little bit. That helps me give context. How? In the additional information section of all places. Sometimes people think that the college essay, the personal statement, is the be-all, end-all. There's such important opportunities here. Did it make the difference? You tell me. He had a 3.6. He got a 1910 on the SAT, and he wanted to go to Stanford. And I was like, I love you, but good luck. And he was like, yeah, I know, but I want to try. And he got in. And it blew my mind, and it blew his mind. And I did this thing as a counselor, after I stopped crying, I was like, well, that's amazing. And you totally deserve it. And he's an incredibly impressive student. And I talk about him on my course about and you get to see his whole application and how the journey of it. And I'm not emphasizing this just because like do this and you'll get into Stanford. That is not what I'm saying here. But as a counselor, I had to go back and be like, what was it about his application? And there's a lot of stuff. You know, the fact that he had tons of leadership, that he had a variety, he had tons of hardship, that he'd gone through a lot of stuff, but also that he equipped the reader with the information on his additional information section so that they can make an informed decision. I know I've said that 3 times, but that's what I'm talking about here. I think it's so important. Another thing you can put in the additional information section is additional awards. Like I had a student 2.5 years ago who had like 30 something color guard awards, and she listed them all in her additional info section. And I was like, I think I get it after like 12. And she's like, you don't think I should put them all? I was like, you could, but is there other stuff that they might want to know? And she's like, yeah, maybe a few things. So she trimmed it down. So you don't need to list all your awards if you're like a well-awarded person. 5 things to not do on your additional info section. I don't think you should put a second personal statement in there. And students will sometimes do this because they're insecure. They can't pick between their main statement and their other main statement, or they think they just wrote another great essay for English. So they're like, let me just throw that in there. I think that doesn't necessarily give the reader the information they need always. An exception to this is when you've got something about like an extracurricular activity that you really want to talk about, but the school that you're applying to, like WashU, for example, doesn't have, you know, a supplement, and you want to talk about that. Again, I put it in bullet points and put it in there so that they have information on that. Okay. But I wouldn't say put a 650 word essay in there. Second, I don't think if you got a B+ in chem that you should go to great lengths to explain it, because hashtag your obsession with academics is showing. That's a really long hashtag. So I recommend just letting the B+ be a B+. Okay. This is for you high achievers out there. Some of you guys are like, what? B+ is good. If you can't give a good explanation for something, like maybe you got a bad grade in math because you didn't like your teacher, that's not a great, that's hard to explain that. And it starts to sound like an excuse. And then sometimes students will be like, and other people didn't like them as well. It's like, it just doesn't feel right and good. You don't have to mention it. So all of your red flags, you know, some might just exist as a red flag. Like by red flag, I mean, like if you got a D and you truly can't explain it, that's going to be a ding, you know, against your application. And sometimes it takes time to try and figure out, and like an excuse can turn into an explanation if you like talk to a counselor and like work that out. I can't really give you like a hard and fast way to like do that, but I would say just keep thinking on it and keep writing on it, because there might be a way to say something positive about it. Also, it's early enough right now that you're watching this that there's still time to like make up those things. Not make up as in like invent those things. I mean, to do something to make up for that. So like, let's say you got a D, you can do work to overcome that or retake a class. Okay. I'm not telling you to lie on your application. Yulia Karavikov from Tufts says, telling me that you cured ICD-9 140-239 doesn't mean much to me. Sorry, I'm not a PhD in chem. So the fourth thing I would say don't put in your additional info section is like an overly complex abstract from a scientific paper. Using common language, says Julia, shows a much greater depth of understanding than copying and pasting an unnecessarily complex research proposal. Here. I read this and I was like, cheers. I've cheers twice. So what do I say? I say to students like, you know, make sure that your science abstract has some English in it. In fact, like make sure it's not like 80% science and 20% English. Make it like 50% science, like 50% English, or like 40% science and 60% English. These are totally arbitrary distinctions, but they're useful. You can like read something and go like ICD-9 140-239 is mostly science. Okay. I don't even know if that's a real thing. Finally, pasting a resume that basically repeats everything that you've already said in your activities list is redundant. Admissions readers are busy. Save them the time. It looks also insecure. Like you're like, hey, look at that other stuff. Remember that cool thing that I mentioned a page ago? Also, it's redundant. That's a joke. It's really subtle, super subtle. Okay, so students miss opportunities, I just said, for providing important context on their additional info section. Don't do that. In the thing that I send you, I'm going to give you 13 potential uses for the additional info with a big qualifier at the top that's like, you don't have to put anything in here, but it's a great place to talk about some stuff that you feel like is important, you know, for your application. Also, it's going to relieve the stress of having to talk about everything in your main statement, because some students try and put absolutely everything in their main essay, and you don't need to. Okay, fifth and final fail. Please don't wait till fall to start. And if you're on this call right now, like I'm preaching to the choir here because you're getting an early start, and there might even be like some, you know, freshmen or sophomores on here. Kudos to you. don't get super hardcore with this. Take these as seeds that are water. But I don't think you should wait till fall to start. Why? Let's fast forward, shall we? Imagine fall of senior year. You're taking your heaviest course load and you're coming out of classes saying things like, OMG, it's like every teacher thinks this is the only class I'm taking. You might have already felt this way, actually, by the way, like before spring break or something. Also, finally, your president or your vice president or whatever role that you like worked so hard to get into because you're like, oh, I should probably show some leadership. So now you're president, great. And now you've got all those responsibilities of being president. Sounds like someone else I know. And you've got, that's as political as I'm going to get, by the way, on this. SAT-2s, I feel like John Oliver right now. SAT-2s and subject tests, you're taking those maybe, or maybe you're having to retake the SAT or ACT. And maybe you're even thinking about college visits because you didn't start your list research yet. Doing all these things at once, maybe you've seen older siblings or friends stressed out. I want you to avoid all this, okay? So here's my college prep timeline, which I'll send to you. I had this awesome guy named Jason design this poster, and you can print it out. It's going to be blurry for y'all. You can literally Google college essay guide, college prep timeline, or just wait till I send this to you. And this has got like, what should you be doing in fall, winter, spring, summer? Like, what should you be doing right now? Basically taking your SAT or ACT for the first time, which you're probably doing well in school. But here's my really specific summer timeline. So I think right now, focusing on school, like I said, AP's finals, and starting to develop your college list. So this is the most important shopping trip that you'll have taken so far. And some students spend more time like shopping for headphones. I didn't plan on having these to illustrate this, but here they are. Like shopping for headphones than they do researching their college list. Okay. So now is a decent time, like a good time to start thinking about where you want to apply. And usually it means finding schools that you have a good chance of getting into. Rarely do I meet a student who I'm like, you need more reach schools. Like you need to be thinking higher. Usually it's finding those schools that like you have a good chance. And by good, I mean like better than 50% chance of getting into. Okay. Once finals and APs or, IBs or whatever are done, then basically it's time to, I think, start your summer project, which is whatever the thing is you're going to be doing this summer, and starting your personal statement. I think it's the best time to start. Whatever your summer project is, it's an internship, it's a research thing, it's getting a summer job. And I think you can start your supplemental essays. So there are certain essays that basically haven't changed from year to year. We know that certain schools will change them, like Chicago is going to have some cool and weird ones as they do every year. But a lot of them are going to be asking you some of the things they've asked you the year before. So you can start, working on your YS essay for Michigan or for UPenn or for Cornell, because they're probably going to have another one. And you can start working on your extracurricular essay because you're going to need to write about MUN or whatever that thing is. So you can start looking up the prompts. I think by August, it's a good idea to be, if you can, finishing your personal statement. Now, some people will say like, but wait, what if I'm going to write on my summer opportunity, whatever I'm doing in the summer? I find that students for a main personal statement end up writing about their life, like what stuff that they've done before that summer. And then sometimes that summer project will end up working into the main statement, but often isn't like the dominant thing that they're writing about. And also, if you do decide to work ahead, you can always write about that summer thing, whatever you did, in a supplement or in the additional info section. Okay. My hope for you is that first day of senior year, you'd be like, let me see if this is going to work. Is it going to work? Yeah, it is going to work. This is my hope for you. This is you. Oh, I just want to see that on repeat. While all your friends are like stressing out, you're just like, I'm good. I'm done. Okay, quick recap. What have we talked about? Better ingredients, better pizza. What are your ingredients? Not necessarily your essay topics, but it's the connections that you're making. So you take that values exercise and you ask yourself, which connections are other people making with this topic or with this activity on my activities list? How could I make unusual or uncommon connections? I think a boring essay, a boring application's got common topic, connections, and language. Uncommon topic, connections, and language, I think more interesting. Don't sleep on the activities list, y'all. It's an important opportunity to show what you've done. Your main personal statement, who you are. Activities list, what you've done. Don't be afraid to brag. How do you brag, though? With awesome verbs. Verbs that show variety, okay? And show values, because I think you can. Don't sleep on the additional info section. There are lots of opportunities there, as I've shown you, to contextualize who you are. And please start this summer. That's probably the most important thing I can say to you. Okay, stick with me. I'm going to give you a quick 3-minute PSA on what I'm doing this summer. I'm going to offer you some free resources, give away a free book, and do a Q&A. So this summer I'm doing 2 courses. The first one is June 16th to 23rd. It's basically a 1-week intensive with me. So it's like this. We'll laugh, we will drink water, and I don't know, listen to music together. No, it's actually pretty intense. And I'll give you the syllabus in just a second. And then the week after that, we get into how to create a great application and supplemental essays. Why did I create these courses? Because I heart teaching. This is, can you tell? This is what I love to do. And I wanted to reach more students. And like, I love working one-on-one with students, but I really like the way this format, the workshop format. And I do probably like 10 to 20 like live workshops a year at like different schools and stuff. And I've seen how magical it can be when students like buckle down for a week, or usually it's like 3 or 4 days of like intense work, and like produce something. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm like done, or I'm like almost done. And so I'm like, I was trying to figure out, how do I create that magic online? And I see how students learn from one another. Like the questions that this person asks that person didn't think to ask really help students. Plus it just saves a ton of time, because I'm basically in the course, I map out how to save tons of hours, for example, when you're organizing your supplemental essays, or how to like overlap your prompts. These are like testimonials. One of the things I'll say about the personal statement course is, if you think that it's just about writing your college essay, you are in for a nice surprise, because we're going to go deep. I'm going to ask you some like deep questions, some personal questions. And sometimes students come out at the other end and they're like, whoa, I didn't think that I was going to be like talking about that and feeling all these feels. And I'm like, that's why I do this. Like, I don't do this because, I'm like, I don't know. I don't do this like just to get into college. Like sometimes that is the end result, like students get into a great school, but I'm really in this because I feel like this is like such an important way of like getting to know yourself. And, in terms of I also do it because I love coming up with efficient systems. I like really get joy out of that. In the first course, the 16th to 22nd, we're going to cover, and basically what I'm doing is I've recorded all these modules and I'm basically releasing them. So when you sign up for the course, you get access to like all the modules, which is 27 modules on the personal statement. So like finding your topic, structuring the essay, how do you revise it? How do you bring it to life? Advanced techniques, which are based on screenwriting, because I studied screenwriting structure. And then in the second week, we're going to get into like, things like what are the best brainstorming exercises, and how do you make sure that your brainstorming exercises, like all that good work, actually ends up in your application. Stuff on the why us essay. I think it's arguably more important than your main essay. I've got like a whole thing on that, and I've got a whole like 20-page guide that I'll share with you. The extracurricular essay, I've got 2 different techniques for writing 2 different types of extracurricular essays that I think cover like basically all extracurricular essays. And then I get into specific supplements. Let me show you some of the examples of these real quick. So here's let me switch my Prezi. Bear with me for one moment, please. Okay, so turn screen share off, turn screen share back on. Here we go. So, all right. So, and I'll share this link with you in a minute, but it's like how to write a personal statement. So it's a 2-part course, right? The personal statement is the first one. The application is the second one. So there's 15 sample essays in the first course, and there are 35 in the second. So you've got 50 sample essays, and it's going to work for basically any schools that you're applying to. Let's see what else I want to show. Oh, here's the specific step-by-step. So check this out. When you click on this link, you'll see like the day by day. And there's a version for counselors too. So for counselors, there's a counselor detailed one. So check this out. The student course, here it comes. So here's the day by day. So the way it works is we meet on the 16th from 10 to 12 PST, and I basically take you through some content and we do a Q&A. And then the next day is like your writing day to do all the homework, because I'm going to give you like at least an hour of homework each night. And then we meet, on the 18th to structure your essay, and we talk about that. And then you go and do homework. So it's kind of like this 2-hour session with me, go home and write. 2-hour session with me, go home and write. Okay, so that's the first course. And then we go right into, we get a day off, but you'll probably be working. And we go right into, okay, now that you've got your personal statement pretty much figured out, and by the way, you can do that without having to figure out your whole application. Then we get into like all the other parts of the application. And what other parts are there? There are lots of parts. Let me just show you that. So for this one, and you can learn more about this here. We're talking about like the supplemental that says like all the Stanford essays. I've got like a module on each of those. I've got a module on, let me see, one second. Okay, so here it is. Let me show you all the details of that. Okay, so check it out. I'm going to teach you how to write a super essay, which is to say an essay that's going to work for tons of different schools. That's the part that's going to save you like maybe 10 to 20 hours. In the activities and awards list, I'm going to talk to you about like modules. I'm going to show you the difference between an amazing activities list and one that's just okay. I'm going to talk to you about, I created this guide that's basically like really good activities list verbs. So if you're like, what kind of verbs should I use? I put together this like big list of like awesome activities list verbs. It's called my epic activities list, verbs list, which just sounds redundant, and it is. With the community essay, which is like for Michigan or Duke, the quotation essay, which is like for Princeton, the create your own class essay, like for Pomona, the diversity essay, which is like for CU Boulder, the YX major, which is like for Brown. So, and in the course, like I'm going to show you, here, these essays work for these schools. And then we get into like the short, answers, how to write all those. Then we talk about, how to create a great video. So that's something that some more and more students are doing, is like creating these, videos. And I'm going to talk to you about like how to do that. How do you prep for an interview? What is demonstrated interest? And is it important? Should I care? All right, so that's the gist of it, and that's the one pager, as it were. So finish your personal statement in Common App by June 30th. That's my hopes, that we celebrate the 4th of July, our independence from the Common App. I've shared with you all this already. We got Q&A sessions with me, so you can like ask me whatever questions you're dealing with. And I'm only teaching this course once this year.